Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. Well, my friends, unfortunately, you're a brand train wreck. Fortunately, I have the guy who can help you fix that, Mr. Stephen Houraghan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Thanks so much for having me on.
Let's start out. I'm curious, what was your professional backstory? What were some of the professional adventures that brought you to the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, well, that's like most of us, is a long journey, so I won't make it long. I'll keep it as brief as possible. But my background is actually finance. So I worked in the financial services industry. I was actually a stock and options advisor. So that was probably about 15 years ago. And after the GFC hit, I kind of knew I was at a crossroads, and I was doing something that I really didn't like. I spent more time looking at how the annual reports were designed rather than what was in them. So I knew I was in the wrong field there. So, and because of that, I knew that I had a clean slate to do whatever it is that I wanted to do afterwards. So I decided to go down the road of design, and that led me to branding. So after a few years working in a few different agencies, I had enough skills under my belt to go out on my own. And that's when I went out to find my own clients. And, you know, I did quite well in the beginning with referrals and things like that. But over time, I noticed that there was, a bit of a shift in the industry. I noticed, some of my longer term clients kind of slowly disappearing into the background. And I sat down and had a chat with one of them one day, and I said, "Hey, what's going on? Where's all the business gone? Yada, yada, yada." And that's when I started to realize that, people were going overseas to get things done online because those marketplaces had opened up to different economies and they were getting their work done cheaper. So that's kind of when I came to the crossroads of saying, okay, look, what am I going to do here? Am I going to go back to employment, or am I going to make a run of this branding thing? So that really took me down the road of saying, okay, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to find out how I can do things differently to the way others are doing things. And that's when I found brand strategy. And that really opened up this whole new world for me. And yeah, it just set me on a few years of discovery, and it's really led me to where I am today. So brand strategy and branding has become everything that I live for now, and it's what I've dedicated myself to for the last 10 years or so.
Totally fantastic. Now, full disclosure, some of our listeners know this and some may not. I have a chapter in my Do It Marketing book, one of the little micro chapters, whose title is Branding is BS. And the reason that I have that in there is because you and I have the exact same philosophy. I love one of your mantras is branding is not about pixels and logos. Mm-hmm. And so many amateur kind of branding consultants, and maybe even some of the smaller branding agencies, they look at it as a very much an outside in type of adventure. And I think you look at it the right way. Branding, of course, is critically important. I just put provocative crap in my book so people buy the book. So branding done the right way is not BS. Branding done the wrong way, which a lot of people do, is problematic. Describe for us, or give us your definition of branding and some of the crazy things that you've seen other agencies or other practitioners do, and then what branding done right really looks like.
So you're spot on in terms of my philosophy. And really, that's where the crux of most problems are, is that branding it's gotten a bit of a bad rep, and it's not branding's fault. Branding didn't do anything wrong. But what happened was it became so easy for people to download a software and learn how to push some pixels around a page and then say that they sold branding services. At the same time, it's become just as easy for absolutely anybody to start a business. So you had the conditions for a perfect storm. You had all of these people coming into the world of business, not knowing what they were doing, and then realizing they needed branding, and then finding these service providers who knew very little about branding, selling those branding services. So it was like the blind leading the blind. And it created this perception that branding is cheap, branding is easy, branding is just a logo here, some colors there, and Bob's your uncle, away you go. But that's not what it is. It's really not. And you only have to step back and look at yourself and your relationships with other brands to realize what branding actually is. Because when you start to dig deep about the brands that are in your life, specifically the brands that mean something to you, then you can start to realize that, well, hang on, I'm actually in a relationship here with this entity, whether I know it or not, whether I like it or not. This is a relationship that we have going on here. And, you know, although you might be unaware of it, or it might be subconscious to you, to the brand, it certainly is not. They know exactly who you are. They know exactly what you're going through, what journey you're on, the struggles that you have, the challenges you come across. And they know exactly how to push those buttons, how to talk to you in your language, how to uncover those challenges and, you know, resonate with you through that journey, and how to bring the emotion of what lies underneath those challenges, you know, in terms of your desires, your fears, and then using that to really connect with you and provide you with exactly what you need in the right moment. So when you realize that all of that lies underneath the brand, then you realize that there is so much more to branding. And when you start to understand all of the pieces of the puzzle, how they connect together and how they interact with the audience and how you can use them to create the perception of the brand that you want to create, that's when the magic happens. That's when you can really start to influence that audience and influence the decisions that they make, which is ultimately what we're all trying to do when we build a brand.
Yes. Now, you mentioned something that I want to draw a distinction: brand strategy. Mm-hmm. Brand strategy versus branding. And I know that you have this fabulous tool that we're going to share with people, the Pro Brand Strategy Blueprint. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about Brand Master Academy, but let's just talk about branding, end of sentence, versus brand strategy, and how you distinguish those two, and then maybe even some of the tenets of brand strategy that you really believe in and share with your clients and audiences.
So branding is what we do to create a perception in the mind of the audience about what our brand means. The brand strategy is the plan for the methodology that we're going to use to place that perception in their mind. So the strategy really is the plan of how are we going to do things? And it stems from asking a ton of questions. You know, well, if we're going to get to the how, we have to understand the who. Well, who is it really that we're trying to connect with? Who is it that we're trying to influence? What is it that they want? What is it that they need? You know, what are their goals? You know, when you start to ask these questions, that's when you start to arm yourself with the ammunition you need to map out that plan. And you can really start to understand, when you can really start to understand your audience for the person they are and really step into their shoes, into the journey that they're on, that's when you really start to understand, okay, you know, what is it that we're trying to help them with? What are the goals that they're trying to achieve? And, you know, how do we help them on their way? And not only how do we help them on their way, but how do we do it differently from our competitors? Because this audience is already out there and they already have a gang of brands all vying for their money, all vying for their attention, all telling them that they can help them achieve their goals. But how are we different from them? And how are we going to convince this group of people that they should choose us over our competitors, because it's not enough anymore to just go out into the market with a product or a service. Look, every single business in the world has some kind of solution to some kind of want or need. And a lot of people, when they get into business for the first time, they believe that is a ticket to success. And it's absolutely not. It's about really understanding how you're going to articulate your value when compared to your competitors, and the way you're going to do that, the messaging you're going to use, the stories you're going to tell, the personality that you're going to use. And all of that is based on who your audience is, what they want, what they're trying to achieve, and then how you can give them what they're trying to achieve in a way that's a little bit different.
Yes. And I also want to point out that this is different than just taking whatever business people have and putting a whole bunch of crap on top of it. So brand strategy is also perhaps changing what you're doing, how you're doing it, or who you're doing it for, so that we're not just putting the same crap in a different bag, but we're actually changing the direction and the focus of your business. And I want to talk about a couple of things that I know you're brilliant at. One is the age-old problem with every seller, every consultant, every coach, every speaker, every trainer, which is generalist versus specialist. Mm-hmm. And, there is, my philosophy on this is that there's no such thing as generalist expertise. Any kind of expertise is always specialized expertise. And of course, specialists can always charge more than generalists. How do we communicate that with our brand, or what foundational decisions do you help your clients think through those decisions so that their brand becomes stronger?
That's a really good question. And this is certainly, it's across all industries really, but I can talk to this firsthand from the design industry and the branding industry, because I was a designer. I was a freelance designer. And I crossed this bridge, as I mentioned earlier. I had all of these clients coming to me, telling me that they can get this done cheaper online. And I was in the ring fighting a fight that I could not win, because I simply could not compete on price with these other operators. Now, I tried a lot of different tactics. And my first tactic was, I'm better. I'm a better designer. My processes are more in-depth. But I quickly realized that that wasn't a compelling enough argument, because a lot of the times entrepreneurs, business owners, they don't see the difference in design. That's not their area of expertise. They see the outcome. I get a logo and they compare apples with apples and they say this one is cheaper, and that's the one that they go with. So what I learned was that if you start to tell them what they need, and that is different from what they believe they need, then they're going to push back. If you just say to them, you need brand strategy, you don't need a logo, then they're going to go, well, who do you think you are? I'll take my business elsewhere. And what I learned is that these people on the other side of the phone, they actually need your help. And if you don't find the right way to give them your help, then they're going to go and they're going to find one of these cheaper online operators, and they're going to go down the road of the wrong direction, essentially because a logo and a website is not a brand, and they're looking for a brand. So I learned that asking questions to your prospect in the right way that highlights the gaps in their thinking, that positions you as an expert. Simply by asking those questions, it positions you as an authority, because it's the whole teacher-student role. If you're asking questions or your questions are being asked of you, you assume the student role. So you want to come up with the best possible answer. And if you ask questions in the right way, that highlights the gaps in their thinking, so that, this particular question, they're not going to have a great answer for that, because chances are they haven't really thought about that. So you want to ask enough questions to make them question their own logic. And if you do that in a way that's friendly, it's not confrontational, as a guide to kind of help them on their way, then when you put that offer in front of them to help them, they will have convinced themselves that they need something more than they originally thought. So that really highlights the difference between a generalist and an expert, it's really bringing your prospects to a place where they can see the value in what you do simply by the questions you ask. And in asking those questions, the lack of a good answer to those questions makes them question their own logic. So those two marry up, and it positions you as an expert, and it positions you to be able to offer them something that they might have said no to before.
Holy smokes, so much value in this episode. Listen, if you are loving what you're hearing, feel free to download, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to The Selling Show. Now, back to the interview. Let's talk about sort of the different directions that a business might take, given the fact that they're competing with all of this noise, all of these generalists, all of these look-alike speakers, trainers, coaches, consultants.
Yep.
Stephen, would your advice be to really zero in on a specific kind of client that has a specific kind of problem, maybe even in a specific industry, and basically stop talking and seeking everything else outside of that? Or are there multiple different ways to specialize or niche down?
There are definitely multiple ways, and there's no one size fits all. But what I would say to anybody who has not gone through that process yet is that niching down doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop talking to everybody else. You can still service business outside your niche as you build your name within that niche. You simply don't talk about it. So you can have your positioning strategy, you can have the industry that you want to target, the service that you want to deliver to that industry. And that's exactly what you present on your website, throughout your messaging, throughout your social posts. It's all geared towards helping this very particular type of person. But chances are you still have a network of associates, and you still potentially have the opportunity for referral business. You still talk to those people. You can still service those people. And you can even have, multiple different strategies going at once. You might have 2 or 3 different industries that you are not really sure which one you want to go after. And you can have your, let's call it your parent brand that will service this business, but you can have individual landing pages directly for these specific industries. And you can put out ads onto Facebook or ads onto Google, or create some content and direct them to those landing pages, so that when they land on those landing pages, they don't feel like you're talking to a generalist, or they don't feel like you are a generalist. They feel like you're somebody who is specific for them. So if you're talking, about who they are, if you're calling out their position or their title or their name or the area they're in or the type of business that they will feel like you're talking to them. They will self-identify with the language that you use. And that is absolutely huge. So yes. I know it's a psychological barrier that, especially when you're early in your business, the idea of closing the door to all these other businesses just doesn't make sense. It's counterintuitive. So there's a lot of pullback on that. And I totally get that. But the thought process is that, well, if I say that I'm this, then all of these other businesses can't see me. They can't see you anyway, because you're a generalist, because you have not taken the time to be specific to anybody. They can't see you. So, you have to commit. You have to, I wouldn't say go all in and say this is definitely going to work, but definitely start having the conversation of, okay, what type of industry do I want to serve? What kind of services do I want to offer? Now, for example, you could offer branding services, but there are many different areas that you can approach that from. There is messaging, there is storytelling, there is positioning, and all of these individual services are a way to get your foot in the door. They're a way to speak to your audience in a different way. Then there might be personal attributes that you have yourself that might mean that you can connect better with a certain type of person or a certain person in a certain industry. For example, you might come from a corporate background, and now you're offering services to the exact type of person that you once were and that exact title. And that's who you can call out. And you can use all of your personal stories, your origin story to really connect and resonate with them on a human level. And that can be a massive point of difference when compared to your competitors. So there's a lot of different ways that you can differentiate. There's a lot of different ways that you can connect. But what I would say is that you need to have a serious conversation with yourself if you haven't already started down this road. Because as I said before, if you fear that you're closing the door on all these other people because they can't see you, they can't see you anyway. So until you start making those moves, then you're invisible.
So powerful. And I really, really want to underline something brilliant that you said. This limits where you start conversations, but it does not limit where you have conversations. Mm-hmm. So proactively, the business that you're pursuing, you're going to start conversations with the ideal clients and the ideal industries and the ideal positions. Whatever comes in the back door, side door, any door, you can have conversations with anyone, but that doesn't keep you off track from pursuing that niche or that specialization.
Yeah, absolutely. When you specialize, it doesn't mean that you need to close the door to all this other business, and you can build solid relationships from people coming in through the area that you're targeting, and that can open many different doors to the services that you can offer them. Again, you don't need to talk about every service that you provide for them. You just talk about the service that you're focused on, that you want to be known for.
Yes, absolutely. I know that you sometimes will get pushback from your clients and from your students. And the pushback, Stephen, sounds like this. Stephen, I don't want to do this because I'm afraid I'll get bored. If I do the same kind of work, the same kind of projects for the same kind of clients for the rest of my professional career, I'm going to be bored. I'm a creative. I thrive on variety. I thrive on excitement. I thrive on different projects for different clients in all different industries. If I zero in on just this type of work, I'm going to be bored. What's your comeback to that?
Look, I completely get the argument as well. For example, if you were to say that you are just going to serve gyms, for example, you are the branding specialist for gyms, and then, you come across the same process all the time, you're going to get bored. But you can look at the sub-industries within industries, and there's so much room for variety within those sub-industries. But just speaking on an industry level gives you so much more relevance to all of those sub-industries. For example, you can talk about the hospitality industry. The hospitality industry has everything from fast food to accommodation to wineries, breweries, distilleries. You can target this certain industry or you can look for certain industries with, healthy sub-industries. And just being able to speak to people within that industry. So hospitality business owners, for example, that would still be too broad and you could get a lot more specific with that. But even if I owned a restaurant, I would self-identify more with hospitality industry or hospitality business owners than I would with small business owner. So, the more relevant you can become, the more power your message has. So really think about the type of people who you want to serve, the type of industries and businesses that you want to serve. And again, once you've positioned your brand, you look around to the sub-industries that fall within your positioning, and then you can still go more niche. You can still create those landing pages. You can still use differentiated marketing to get even more specific with that messaging, so that you're talking to them in a way that makes them feel, well, he's talking directly to me and my problems. It's not just small business this and because to be honest, and you know this yourself, Dave, how many ads do you see targeted at small business and you just go, well, that's not me.
Right.
And if you feel that somebody has called your particular business out and a particular problem within your business that's kind of gnawing on you at the moment, then you'll go, that's when they'll get your attention.
Amen. I could not have said it better myself. One of the things that we always teach and preach is that there's no such thing as a general solution to a specific problem. And every single client has a specific problem, and they need to know that you can help them with their specific problem. I want to open up a little bit of a can of worms here. Then I do want to talk about Brand Master Academy and the blueprint and all the other fun things that you have for people. Talk to me about luxury branding, because it seems to be like an entirely different planet where we're talking about Rolex, we're talking about Bentley, we're talking about Gucci. These brands, it's not only that they look different and feel different, they behave differently, right? They never chase. They're highly sought after. They're like turning on a big electromagnet, and then everybody wants to come in, and they have the luxury, pardon the pun, of literally filtering and sorting and qualifying the people who they deem eligible to do business with them.
Absolutely.
So what can an entrepreneur brand learn from some of these luxury brands? And say a little bit about what you teach your branders about luxury branding and some lessons they can get from it.
Yeah, luxury branding. Look, we can all relate to this. We've all kind of chased someone that we were attracted to, and, they didn't have the same interest that we had. And, their lack of interest or their indifference kind of made us, want that person more. And it's all about that exclusivity and that, wanting to be part of that club or wanting something that you can't have. It creates this tangible emotion that make people do stupid things, make people pay, way more than they should. And what luxury brands do so well is they create that sense of exclusivity, and they really tap into that ruler archetype and the attributes that we find in ruler archetypes who want to be, the top of the food chain. They want to be part of that high society. So what they do really, really well is they don't have discounts. They don't need the sales. And again, this is coming back to, that exclusive club or the cool kids club. They don't need you there. They don't go out looking for new members. They let you come to them. And that's what they do really, really well, is they position themselves as an exclusive club, and they tick all the boxes for you. Everything they do, everything they say confirms to you that if you buy this brand, then you are this successful. You are part of this group. You are part of this club. And a lot of us want that. A lot of us need that. We need that tick of approval. Why do so many people go out and buy a new watch as a celebration, when they close a big deal? Because it is that confirmation that they have achieved something. So what luxury brands do really well is they confirm to their customers, yes, you have made it. You have achieved this because you are welcome into our club. You have bought that watch or bought that car or bought that really expensive bag that only very few people can do. So it's really that exclusivity and tapping into the attributes of that ruler archetype that make luxury brands that little bit different from everybody else. So that's what I would say they do really well consistently across the board.
Yes, I know. Terrific episode here, but have you seen our latest web training? Oh my goodness, pop over there right now, or as soon as you're done listening to this episode, it's doitmarketing.com/webinar. See you over there. Back to the good stuff. Now, last question, and then I definitely want to hear more about the Brand Master Academy and different ways people can get connected and go deeper into your world. Talk to me about sales and branding, the direct connection between how well you've done the branding job and then what happens to your lead generation, what happens to your prospecting process, what happens to your fee structure. So help me connect all of this amazing branding work with frontline selling to clients who are interested, qualified, and ready to go.
Absolutely. Now, the answer to this question does not involve metrics. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with this, especially in the world of digital marketing, where there's a metric for absolutely everything. we can quantify everything today online, and we become, certainly business leaders become addicted to those metrics. And branding, quite simply, it's fluffy. It is so hard to determine an ROI because it is all about relationship building. And I really like analogies in all forms of communication, but certainly when talking to my clients about branding. And a great analogy that I like to use to highlight the impact of branding is, if you were to start a new job, let's say you were to go into an office with 500 people. And from the very first day, you started to go around and ask people for something. Can I have this? Can I have a favor? Can I have this? Can you show me this? Can you show me that? And you did this every day for your first 3 months. By the end of that 3 months, everybody within that business would know you as the asker. And when they see you coming, they'd be, oh, no, here he is again. Now, on the contrary, if you were to go into that office and every person that you saw, you had a smile on your face, you asked them how their day was, you got to know them, you asked them about their family, you asked them if they needed help with something. And then after 3 months of doing this, you turned around to somebody and asked them for a favor, they would be absolutely delighted to do you a favor. Now, are you able to quantify how much of what you did contributed to their conversion of saying yes to that favor? No, but you know what you did every day has contributed. So if you were to take two brands to do the same thing in the market as I just described, and one brand simply focused on paid advertising and it was all direct response, there was no nurturing in there, there was none of this 7, 8, 9, 10 touch points, it was all about direct response. And comparatively, you had another brand who also did the direct response, but branded and nurtured their clients. They got them onto an email drip sequence where they gave them value. They were having conversations in social media. They brought them into their group and their community, and they allowed them to sample the brand, to taste the brand, to pick up the phone and speak to somebody. All of this is part of the brand. This is the brand experience. And if you have just a business that just does marketing, just does advertising, and there is no brand building on the back of that, there's no brand experience and nurturing, then I can guarantee you that the metrics for the brand who is branding and nurturing will be far higher than the metrics for the brand that is not. Can you quantify that? Can you quantify the value of that branding? No, not to any scientific degree, but you know through the example that I used before, as a person, as a human, these all have an impact on us. All of these little touch points, these little bids of trust that are earned through our interactions with the brands that we do business with, these all land. Whether we realize it or not, subconsciously they land and they build what's called a perception of this business in our mind. And that, at the end of the day, is what branding is all about.
Amazing. Totally, totally amazing. Let's talk about all the fabulous programs that you have. I want to go behind the scenes here, part the curtain, because people need to learn this. They need to have formal, I think, structures and training and methodology and tools. Talk to me about Brandmaster Academy. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about some of the different programs and different levels that people can get involved with, and how does all of that work?
So Brandmaster Academy is something that I put together after I went through my transformation and I began to see the value of brand strategy and the frameworks that I was using for my clients and how I was doing things differently from other designers and how I was able to incrementally increase my fees. And there are a number of programs that teach students how to do that. So whether they're designers, copywriters, social media managers, how to level up to brand strategy, because branding is very fragmented. There are a lot of different disciplines within branding, and none of them really stem from strategy if that's not the background that you've come from. But a lot more businesses are becoming savvy to what brand strategy is. So all of these executioners, all of these tacticians, they're now starting to ask bigger questions and turning in to look at what branding really is. And brand strategy is what comes up time and again. But most of them don't have a framework to put together a brand strategy for their clients. So Brandmaster Secrets is our flagship program, and that gives you the framework to develop brand strategies for your clients end to end. And it also gives you the framework of how to package that up, how to generate leads, how to sell that as well. We also have another program called Brandmaster Workshops. It's for brand strategists who want to involve their clients a little bit more in their processes through workshops, whether that's face-to-face or online workshops. And it gives you all the tools, the exercises, the questionnaires, the presentation decks to be able to do that directly with your clients. So there are two flagship programs. We also have other training to show you how to sell brand strategy in more detail, a 4-hour masterclass. But if you really just want a taste of what Brandmaster Academy is all about, well, we kind of do what we preach. We brand. We give a lot of free content. We nurture. So the YouTube channel, we've got, I think it's close to 30,000 followers now. There is a ton of videos on there. I think there's over 200, maybe even 250 videos all about branding, brand strategy. And yeah, the Pro Brand Strategy Blueprint. If you are just coming across brand strategy before, you want to understand the elements that are involved in building a brand using strategy, then the Pro Brand Strategy Blueprint is a perfect kind of jumping off point.
And that's a free download from your website, correct?
Yes.
Let's give people the URL. And also, we're going to put this in the show notes. All of the links that Stephen shared, we're going to put in the show notes right below this episode at thesellingshow.com. But where do people go to pick up the Pro Brand Strategy Blueprint?
You've put me on the spot, but I believe it's brandmasteracademy.com/brand-strategy-blueprint. If you type that in and it doesn't work, go to the show notes for the correct link. I'm pretty sure that's it, but I'll double check.
I think it's also linked right on the homepage of brandmasteracademy.com. They can also just click on the big, bright pink, hard to miss button.
Correct them on that
button, and they will just grab a copy there as well. Well, Stephen Houraghan, thank you so much for being with us. This was completely amazing. I think people are now looking at their own brand and branding in a completely different way. I want to close with just kind of one big macro level question, which is if folks were to walk away from our interview today with one overarching concept to remember or to keep in mind, what would you hope that would be?
That branding is misunderstood, and people out there building brands need help. It's not their fault that they don't understand it. And if you're able to help them by asking them questions in a way that will make them question their own logic, then you've built the bridge for them to engage you to help them.
Brilliant. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you, and more fun to come.
Cheers, David. Thanks for having me on.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.